Thank you. So this is a workshop about event promotion, specifically the hotel occupancy tax grants that the city of Alpine give. Things still there. I want it to go away. Hey Gio, can you make that go away?
Yes, that's what I came in the.
Okay, so we're recording this also, so folks in the future can learn some of these things. This is a brief overview. I'm going to talk for those who might be listening. We're going to focus a little bit at the start on the hotel occupancy tax grants and how that works with event promotion, and then kind of a general overview on the different kinds of ads that you could do, what they cost, and a few thoughts about each kind. But we'll start with what makes an event successful. A great program, obviously, and that's the first thing that most of us think about when we think about an event. We think, what's the party we're going to give? What's the music we're going to have? But of course, people actually showing up is the second half of the equation. That is not enough to put on the event. You have to tell people about it, and that's at least half of the job, but it sometimes is an afterthought. And in this case, not only people, but people outside of the area. And when hotel occupancy tax funds are involved, at minimum, half the people you invite, and ideally a large majority, need to be outside of Brewster, Jeff Davis, and Presidio County. So for the purposes of the city of Alpine, our tri-county area is what we consider local. And anything outside of that is, that's where we can spend our hotel occupancy tax dollars. And this, just so folks know, the hotel tax is not a bucket of free money, though there's sometimes it seems like there's a lot of money there that's available, but there's a legal purpose for these funds, and supporting an event intended just for locals, even if it's an important event, that's actually against the law. So when we think about an event and think about it in terms of hotel occupancy tax, we want to make sure that from the outset, we're thinking about visitors from outside the three counties. And so next slide on hotel grant obligations. So what the grant gets you is funds and some assistance from myself and from the visitor center, but it's your event. And so it's your responsibility to do the promotions. The hotel tax statute requires Alpine to spend 50% of the tax money that we collect every year on advertising. And so when we make a grant that includes advertising dollars, we're counting on the event organizers to spend that money because we need them to, because we're legally required to spend it. And if they don't, then I have to scramble at the end of the year and make sure it gets spent. So when you look at your budget, make sure you budget it all, because we do have to spend it. And so in terms of the assistance we can give you, I, the tourism director, can consult and make suggestions. And the visitor center can help spread the word. Heather is an incredible resource for ideas about events and helping connect you with people that can help you get things done, and primarily telling visitors about your event. But what's on you is planning and budgeting your advertising, making the contracts with the media that you're working with, and arranging for the design and the artwork that's going to be required for your promotions. And that's not something that the city can provide. This is something that is part of the job of putting on an event. Let's see. And so the ads that you make, just a few things to know about them. They need to be pre-approved before they run. So say you want to do a newspaper ad, I need to see it before it runs in the paper. And primarily, I'd have to ensure that it looks nice, one, and mainly that the city's recognized, that the city logo, the city seal, or the Visit Alpine logo are on the ad, space permitting. If it's a tiny little web ad, we can work with that. But we'll just primarily, when you're doing your timing, try and build in some extra time before you need to send the ad to make sure you run it by me so I can sign off and everything's great. For the payment and reimbursement, we need to get an invoice for the ad a tear sheet, which is basically a copy of the page that the ad's shown on, some kind of proof that the ad ran. If we're reimbursing you, we need the proof of payment, the canceled check or receipt. If we're paying it directly, we need the W-9 form for the magazine or newspaper or whatever it is, whoever gets the check. And then we're going to move on to budgeting for your ad campaigns for your event. We have two areas that promotion is important for your event. There's the local that we talked about, Brewster, Jeff Davis, and Presidio counties. These are important audiences for you, and you're going to want to tell the local people that your event's happening. There's also the out of town, and so what you're going to want to do is budget those things separately and just keep track of your total budget, the local budget that you'll need to raise from somewhere else, and the out of town budget that the hotel tax can spend. And and we'll go over some of the ways that works within printing and things like that in a minute. And so then this next couple of slides are some different places that you can advertise. You don't need to do all of these things. These are just pretty much everything I could think of the channels you could use to promote your event, and then how much it might cost. And so your handout will have this, and folks listening on cityofalpine.com, there'll be a PDF file with the handout from this presentation. So you'll have all the numbers there that you can refer to. These are just ballparks. So social media posts, absolutely free. It takes your time. If you hire somebody to do them, there's that cost, but it's free to put information out on social media. Email newsletters are free, especially if you use a free platform. Press releases can be great coverage, and those are also free to newspapers, radio, television. Posters are very common. We certainly use them primarily locally, but you can use them out of town as well. And you're looking at $1 to $2 each probably. For a large one, it's probably $2 each if you print them here in town. If you get them printed elsewhere, you might get them cheaper, but that's about what you're looking at. Then there's direct mail. And there you're looking at printing costs plus the postage costs. If you buy a mailing list, there's a cost associated there. But I'm assuming at this point that this is your own mailing list that you put together. The next piece for social media, you actually can buy ads within those social networks, and that gets you a lot more reach than just when you make a post on Facebook or Instagram, a certain number of your followers or friends are going to see it, but not all of them. And so if you really want to get people to see it, and particularly people you don't already know to see it, that's where the advertising come in. Locally, I think you could effectively tell people about an event for $50 to $100. Out of town, it really depends on your priorities. You could spend $50 and you tell some people about it, and you could spend $5,000 or more on social media ads if that was your primary focus. It really depends on how you want to handle it. Then there's newspaper ads. That locally would be $250 to $500, I would guess, would be a reasonable budget. And you're looking at $1,000+ per paper if you're out of town. Billboards, that is going to run $3,000 to $4,000, I would say, if you wanted to go that route to be effective. Radio ads locally, again, $250 to $500 would get you a really good local radio campaign. Out of town, you're looking at $1,500 or more per station. TV ads, $2,000 or so per station, I would say, to be effective, probably a little more. Magazine print ads can be quite expensive. You're looking at $1,500 to $5,000 for print. One of the things that magazines do is they'll offer a partnership on their website. And I'll go over some of these things in a little more detail in a minute. And you can do digital combination ads with a magazine, and that can run you anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 plus, in addition to what the print ad would be. And lastly, design and production. And this could, I would suggest $200. You could do low budget, you could get your kind of basic artwork that you could use to do your ads and things like that. The newspapers or whoever could do the design for you, as long as you've got that initial little piece. Or if you're building a website, if you're having somebody build all your ads for you, you could look at $2,000 or more for design. And one thing you should know is that up to 15% of your advertising dollars can be spent on design. And so as you're looking at that, if there's somebody, I can suggest folks, if you're looking for somebody to do that, but that's something you want to look at when you're planning out your budget. You don't have to spend 15% on it, but you can. And if you need photography, if you need video, those are the sorts of things that can be spent on. So then I've gone through this long list of things you could do. So which ones should you do? And that's of course going to be different for everybody. But the first question is, how much money do you actually have? How much are you awarded in your grant? How much promotional money did you budget for aside from that? And that will help you. You can skim down those budget numbers and just go, well, no, no, no. You can tell what's appropriate for your budget and what's not. That's a starting place. And then you can look at geography, Midland, Odessa, and the nearby region, Monahans, and going out to San Angelo. That's a really good area for us because it's easy for people to get here. So when you're first starting to reach outside of the Tri-County area, just work your way out as your budget will allow. But I'd start, just outside the Tri-County area and inviting folks from Midland, Odessa. There's a lot of people there and they like to come here. So that's a good target. And then lastly, can your audience suggest which channels to use? So you want to think about who are you inviting? Who's a natural fit for the program that you're doing? Like say you have Tejano musicians coming. Well, you want to talk to Tejano fans, and so where are they? Well, one, you can find them online. If you do social media ads, you may well be able to show those ads only to Tejano fans, or it's music. So you could find radio stations or radio shows that are playing that music, and that's where you'll find them. So my example in my slide is motorcycles. Say it's a motorcycle rally. That suggests, there are magazines specifically for motorcycles. There are newsletters for owners groups. Sometimes like the repair shop in town will have a mailing list. There's ways that you can contact the people who are interested. So that's another way that can help you make the decision of which of these channels you want to use. So now I'm going to briefly go over just some thoughts about each of those channels that we talked about. So social media, when you're thinking about a presence for social media for your event, you want to look at the time from now until your event's going to happen and sort of plan out that timeline so that as early as possible, you make a Facebook event and you make Visit Alpine a co-host, which helps us to share and promote it. And I'll actually show you guys on my screen here how to make a Facebook event and make us a co-host. But you want to do that as early as possible so it's there. It shows up on Visit Alpine's calendar of events on our Facebook page, and also Heather knows about it, and we'll put it on our website as well.
Well, because I don't put anything on the website until it has like some kind of artwork to go with it. That's one thing that, like when he's talking about creating something, whether it's a logo or anything like that. Sometimes I'll go and find pictures, or I'll cut something like the church is having a fish fry this weekend. And I hadn't seen anything on it yet, so I went to the church bulletin and did a little snip of the clip as much as I could. So, but it's as soon as there's art with it, we can get it onto our website, which automatically puts it onto the app as well. And then it also lets us start sending it out to hotels in advance, because we send them a weekly event list, like things that are going on by the day, and then we say upcoming. So as soon as we have that information, you get put onto the upcoming section of like bigger events going on. We don't put like every single thing that's upcoming, but right now we have a huge list because we have so many events scheduled coming for the next year. So that starts going out to them and they make it available to their guests, because our goal is always to invite people back for the next time.
Yeah. So at the start, you would do some teasers, you make the Facebook event and you announce that the event's gonna happen. And that's enough for a little while. If your event's in 6 months, you don't need to post every day for 6 months. You wanna every once in a while, but you'll wanna kind of plot it out so that you're increasing in frequency as your event gets closer. And then at the time when you think that your audience is thinking about maybe coming, that's when you want the most posts. And so also, I mentioned Facebook, but Instagram's important, especially right now, because as Facebook's gotten embattled in the media, a lot of folks have jumped off of Facebook, especially younger ones. There's kind of been that trend before, but for the first time recently, Facebook's overall audience actually reduced a little bit. There's still older folks, 50 and over, it's still the primary social media network, but for folks younger than that, Instagram is right there. And so the folks who did leave Facebook, they did not leave Instagram. And so thinking about both is a really good idea. And when you're buying the ads, because it's the same company, you can buy ads on both at the same time. And so we're talking about posting. Well, what am I going to post? I have no idea. So that's also where what I usually suggest is think about what is your event about and who is going to be there doing the stuff that they do. So let's say it's a music event. Let's say it's a multicultural festival, and you have a lot of people coming to share their talents. Well, that's your content right there. So what you might want to do is reach out to those people and ask them for photographs, particularly for performance video if they've got it, and you can share those things. And if they're local, if you have access to those people, one thing we're trying now is maybe interviews, just up with a phone. It could be a selfie interview of you or friends holding your phone, and you talk to one of the vendors or one of the performers and say, tell us about what you're doing and why you're excited about coming to the Multicultural Festival. And
well, with phones now, anybody who's even farther away can do that. Like if
That's
you've
true.
got little Joe and La Familia to just turn the phone on themselves and say some things and send it to you and get that on a Facebook, that would be huge, obviously, because everyone's going to be super excited about that. Because cell phones have made it so that, and Zoom and all these things, we don't have to go to the people anymore. It just, they can send it to you. And if the file's too big, that's some things that you can, Chris can walk you through too. He's way better at it than me, like how to Dropbox stuff to people and things like that. But you can really get something from someone from far away anytime. I will say that I see Cindy post a lot of stuff on different bluegrass people who are performing all over. She follows them all on Facebook, and anytime they perform somewhere and she's planning on bringing them here, she puts it onto her Big Bend Bluegrass Association page. So that's the kind of stuff that just is teasing for people to want to come here and see them.
yeah, so as you're thinking about what your program is about, that will suggest, and I would suggest trying to come up with two or three, a couple of different approaches to content. Like if you're going to have vendors as well as performers, well, maybe you share about the vendors, you share about the performers, and that will give you enough ideas where you can come up with enough to have a good body of posts. And I really suggest write them ahead of enough post, and what am I going to say? Just set a day aside and go ahead and plan them all out. And in fact, they call it an editorial calendar, just saying these are the days that we're going to do it. And it's also entirely possible if you have a Facebook page, you've got access to Facebook's planner, and you can pre-schedule. You could pre-schedule your entire social media campaign 3 months before and be done. You want to look at people's comments and questions, because that's one thing.
Schedules everything. I don't.
Yeah. Sometimes I schedule it. I get up early in the morning and I schedule today's for later. But that way, when the time comes, I don't have to stop what I'm doing.
Well, like when you guys were doing your sale the other Sunday morning on Murphy Street, I knew I wouldn't be up early enough on a Sunday morning. So like I scheduled that one in advance to run it starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. Because I was like, I'm not going to be up to run that at 8 o'clock in the morning to tell everyone to go to this fundraiser. So sometimes I use it like that, but no, the scheduling is super helpful. And it's funny because I don't usually look what he has scheduled. And there was one day this week that we both posted about Alpine being music friendly, like totally random. but that just
Yeah.
works out sometimes. Because I do the morning post and he does the
Right.
afternoon post. We kind of split up our social media that way. So
And so as I mentioned, videos are great for social media, especially on both Instagram and Facebook. If there's a video and it's not a YouTube video that's shared on Facebook, but an actual video uploaded to Facebook, it starts playing right when somebody sees it. And so that action catches their eye. If it's a great photo, it's going to catch their eye anyway, even if it doesn't move. But video is great if you can get it. And so
anything you can get as a original post instead of being shared is
Yes.
gonna get more likes and more engagement.
And a big thing to know is that if you're thinking about the way that ads work on Facebook, and I'll talk about that in a minute, you can either build an ad in there off to the side, or you can boost a post to a certain audience that already exists, but it has to be your post. If you shared something, they won't let you.
You can't
put
boost
money
something you
behind it.
share.
Yeah, like say little Joe posts his own video about how excited he is about coming to Alpine, and you want to do an ad for that, it won't let you. You know, you have to get the video, post it yourself, and then it'll let you make that into an ad. And I thought I'd just mention, because the universe is changing, TikTok. If your audience is pretty young, but most particularly if you happen to have a helper that's on it already, go for it. But otherwise, I wouldn't worry too much. But it's growing. Then we'll talk about email newsletters. Email newsletters are kind of a slow build sort of thing year over year. If you're going to have a long event, then you can collect addresses. Viva Big Ben has done great with these because they sell their tickets online. So they have a really strong email list that they can promote the upcoming event to. And so you would build your own list over time, and it's a huge value. It is so much easier to invite somebody back than to find somebody new and convince them to come for the first time. And so I use MailChimp most often as a email list platform because it's free for the first like 2,000 email addresses or something like that. There are others, Constant Contact and Flowdesk are two that I know about, but there are many. But if you only have a small list, MailChimp's a good place to start. You can just paste emails into the BCC line, but they're going to look better, and you can be more certain that they're not going to be caught in spam if you use MailChimp.
Well, he's saying the BCC line because you don't want to put everyone's email in the send, because you don't want to be sharing other people's
Yeah.
email with the whole list.
You have to protect their privacy. And
So if you do send out an email and you don't use one of those services, you should at least blind copy
yes,
everyone. Don't just put them all in the send,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're sending all their information to everybody who's on your list. And they agreed to share their information with you, not with the other, hopefully hundreds of people that are on
Yeah,
your list.
exactly. And so how do you get these emails, you may ask? Well, that's something to think about. If you have like Eventbrite or some kind of ticketing, online ticketing platform, that's going to capture that for you. But you do want to make sure that somewhere on there, and I bet it's built into Eventbrite, you're asking them, or you're saying, if you put your email here, we're going to add you to the mailing list, so they have the choice, because all the platforms are very careful about spam. They don't want to be associated with people getting unwanted emails. It gives them a bad reputation. So be sure that people know when you do collect their email address that they'll get information about your next year's event. And so if you have at the event a hospitality booth, or you're doing a raffle or something, that's a great way to get people's email addresses that you, in exchange for a chance to win this boat or whatever it is.
I will say that we used to take email addresses at the visitor center, and when people were writing them down, I would go in to enter them later, and like, you can't ever read their handwriting, and it's terrible. If
That
you
is
can
true.
come up with some digital way to a laptop or iPad or something for them to type it into like a list, it would.
Your life will be
better.
easier if you do that, or you'll get more
Otherwise,
email
you're gonna
addresses.
have all of them on a piece of paper, then you have to decipher what they've written and enter it all into a database yourself. So if you have some means to not have to do that step, I would suggest it.
Yeah, if you can. So that's it for email newsletters. Your first year, yeah, you're not going to have those emails. So Yeah, I don't think you can really buy emails very easily. So next on the list was press releases, which are a huge opportunity for all of us. That's called earned media, when a magazine or a newspaper runs a story about you, and it's completely free, and it's so much more valuable than a display ad. You buy an ad, people know you paid for that ad. But if the magazine or the newspaper thought your event was important or interesting enough to talk about, that's why they went to the magazine in the first place. So it's huge value if you can get it. And so how do you get it? Well, get a good writer and come up with a good story. Because see, when we think about a press release, we think who, what, when, where, why, right? Well, this event is happening, and it's happening here on Historic Murphy Street on this day, this time, and there's gonna be some kids activities, and there's gonna be some vendors, and there's gonna be some big bands, big names. The big names are the hook, right? But is there anything else? Is there any angle on those people coming? Is there any angle that to do with the mission, what inspired you to do the event in the first place, the connection of the performer to the place, anything you can come up with, or just something that nothing like this has happened before? That's a story. But something where what you want to think like a publisher who needs to inform and entertain their audience. And so the question that we all ask ourselves is, why should they care? Now, the local paper will most likely, if they're in a good mood, run the little blurb that's just the details, and that will get you the local, a local press release is much easier to get. But when we're looking at a newspaper out of town or a magazine statewide, really need a story that's going to interest them. And so that's where getting a good writer who can make that happen, who can shape that story, and also write it so that you're interviewed, or maybe one of your performers. So you got some quotes in there, so it feels like a feature story. And so you want to look at feature stories that are good ones about events similar to yours and see, well, what did they do? And then if you have a friend who's a good writer, or you can find one to pay, $200 will get you a lot of writing in this world. And just show them the model. Say, this is what we're looking for, but about us.
But the quotes make it one-stop shop for them, so they don't have to go out and find those quotes themselves to make it into a story. Because if you just send them who, where, when, what, why, they have to then call and follow up. And because most people are not going to write more than, like you said, a little blurb on TV, a who, what, when, where, why is going to be 20 seconds. It's not going to be anything more than that.
Yeah. And with print publications, photography is everything. If you have a really beautiful photograph to illustrate your story, that's they'll think about it. Even if the story's not that great, if the photo's really good, it'll help carry it, it'll sell it to them, because they know they can run it with something that looks nice, because just words only get them so far. If it's a first year event, I highly recommend use some of that budget, of that production budget, hire a photographer and a videographer if you can. Hire somebody who's got a good eye to shoot video and photographs of the event while it's happening, if you plan on doing it again, because then you've got good photos and good video, and then you've got a shot at getting on the TV news in some of those regional cities. Midland, Odessa, they like stories about Alpine, and if you've got video, they'll seriously think.
We have an
about
Odessa
talking.
reporter right now who's assigned to Alpine too, right? They've been here one time.
Yeah.
They haven't been back, but like they it's like a weather person, I think, actually, isn't it? But they were just kind of like to do fun feature stories. So we have somebody who's like assigned to actually talk about things, and they're assigned to the whole region. So of course that's the park and everything. But we do have, they want to do the feature stories about this area.
Yeah, and if you don't have video, the morning shows would love to talk to you anyway, because they're always looking for people to talk to. And now their morning shows, they're really early. And so until recently, yeah, that meant you're driving to Midland to be there at 6 in the morning, which is not fun. But I understand these days.
Yeah, a lot of times now they'll do it more
You can do a Zoom.
remote. they can do them on Zoom. Zoom and again, cell phones have changed everything. I'm sure if you guys watch the news, you see where reporters sometimes are just like covering something like this themselves and things. It's not nearly as technical as it used to be. So they will do stuff over Zoom. They'll do interviews over Zoom. If you saw the rodeo piece that was done, like just last week, it was Pete was not interviewed live. He was at a desk and it was over Zoom that he was interviewed for the piece that they did about how college rodeo started here and how they're bringing the tradition back. The reporter came and was actually at the arena and talked to some the coach and kids and stuff. But I think it was probably when Pete was at the board of trustees because the timing of it, and he was not interviewed live by somebody. It was over Zoom. So there's ways that they can do that now.
Yeah. So as you're looking at when your event's coming up, that sweet spot of a month, a couple weeks out, you might see if you could schedule a morning show. And of course, the local radio, Martin would love to talk to you in the morning, so if you could schedule those things as well.
He does second cup of coffee.
Yeah, it's easier to get the local than the regional, but the regional is what brings the folks in.
How do they get their music people to be with JR?
They were, well, when we've done it, we go in the back studio and we pre-record.
Okay.
Because we can't be there right at that time. But a lot of times folks, they're in the back studio and they come in and play. But he's done some people over the phone too.
Okay.
I'm not sure how they produce those.
But if they're having local people, performers, then that's an
That's
opportunity
true.
too.
That's true.
To use JR's show.
That is on KVLF, that's Jammin' and Jawin' with JR. And so if you got a performer that can be in town, then they can come and talk to him.
A lot of
Yeah.
bluegrass.
He can actually do a phone interview, and if they send him music,
He'll cut it in.
yeah.
And like the old Rugged Choir, they kind of did a remote recording and played those when a couple of the musicians were interviewed.
Right.
So yeah, he's flexible. And then lastly, on press releases, magazines, we usually with Visit Alpine, think about the statewide magazines, which is, the flagships or Texas Monthly, Texas Highways. Story there gets a lot of eyeballs, but they plan their stories way in advance. I sent a pitch to a AAA Explorer for Texas and was told a full year out they know what their stories are going to be that far ahead of time. So if you want to pitch something, put a package together for magazines, you want to think way ahead of time. And that's something where you really have to have those great photos and that real hook of a story that tugs at the heartstrings so that they want to run it. Okay, then I'll run through these some of these others, just a couple of thoughts on each. Posters and printing. Hotel Tax can pay for some of your posters, but only the ones that go out of town. And so what I suggest is split the print run in half. If you make this plan where you're how many you need locally, and then print that many again and make a plan for getting them out of town, then the design of the poster can be paid for out of hotel tax. All of it is fine. Half of the printing can be paid for out of hotel tax. Just the posters that stay in town, we can't pay for, but we can prorate out the rest. So that's how I would recommend when you're looking at your posters, see who in your network is going to Midland, to San Angelo, and can they take a stack of posters? So and the more you print and can get out, then the more higher percentage of that print bill can be paid out of the hotel tax.
Well, the posters are one of those things that we don't have any way to track of how effective they are. Every time I go to take our posters to the Porter's Wall, I'm like, gotta find a spot again. I dread doing it. So because I don't know if it's really paying off. Same thing. I think when they're individually around town, look a little nicer on people, and some people display them high, and then other people put them all the way at the bottom. You're like, nobody's looking at that. That's frustrating. So I don't know how much stock I put into posters.
They're a local staple.
They are
For
here.
sure.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Everybody here loves them. So I'm not saying don't do them, but I get frustrated when I put them out for our events because we don't have any way of knowing how effective they are.
Yeah. So then direct mail, actual US mail. This is very much like email, like those email newsletters. If you build your own list, then you can invite those people back with a postcard. Art Walk has done it for 20 years, and they have 20 years worth of mailing addresses. That's a big part of this, it's a tiny percentage of their promotion, but it's significant. They've got some 2,000 different people who've come before and will come again that they can invite back.
Well, they cross-use those postcards.
Hmm?
They cross-use the postcards
Yeah.
because then that's also what you see at like different, people's counters and stuff like
Yeah.
that. They-
When you print postcards, you can also, they can also be handouts. You can put them. Yeah,
Chris, let's see if I got it right on the posters. Did I hear correctly said that you said that, for example, we can go to a local printer,
Mhm.
have a posters made here, but then we designate how many are going to be going outside of the tri-county area,
Mhm.
and we can get reimbursed for the printing and distribution. for the
Yeah,
ones
and in
going out.
fact, I think it's reasonable to consider some of the cost. I didn't want to check with Megan about mileage, but I think something would be reasonable for the expense of actually getting the posters there. But yes, it's that percentage, it's like split the run. These are the local posters. These are the out of town posters. Make sure you actually get them out of town. And we can pay that percentage of the bill. Next, yeah,
What is the mileage?
that, I'm gonna have to talk to Megan about that.
No, no, but like,
Outside the tri-county area.
Yeah.
Okay, outside like Fort Stockton.
Yeah, see, Fort Stockton is outside of the county, so I consider it fair game. In the spirit of the law, if it's a purely daytime event, then Fort Stockton isn't that good of a market because it's an easy drive back and forth.
Okay.
But if
I
you've got
see.
stuff happening at night, then it's fine, because the majority of people, even driving an hour, if they're then at an event at night, yeah, the young ones, the foolhardy ones, the ones who don't like to sleep, they'll drive back later, but a lot of folks will stay, so that's
What if it's a nighttime event? A lot of times it also involves libration. I mean, like
libation.
libations, you may not want
So Presidio is out of the county.
out of the
It's
tri-county.
it's in Presidio County, so it doesn't. I think we could probably consider that something specifically to Presidio is okay, even though it's in Presidio County. But it's so far away. It's farther than Fort Stockton,
Yeah, it
so that is fair. Let's see, so newspaper ads, one thing to consider, the big city papers or the larger than Alpine. Once you get to a larger city, there's so many more media options that newspapers have less of a stature, less of a presence in the community psyche than a small town paper would. So it's just something to think about.
One thing to tell them about, there are some newspapers and like even radio that have already established the process with Alpine as far as like, they give them the ad and they know that they're getting paid from us though, right?
Yes.
How that works.
Well, the way that contracting, if the city's gonna pay directly, works is that you have your total for your budget. And so you have the commitment from the city that up to that amount, the city will pay for your advertising. But you're contracting with the newspaper or the media. But what will happen is you'll then put them in contact with me, and the billing will come by email to me, but the contract is between you and.
Right, just so they know, like, that's how you don't pay for it and get
Yeah.
reimbursed. That's how the process works.
Yeah.
So
Now,
you
the city,
still
of
sign a
course-
contract.
The city, of course, prefers that you guys just get paid back, that you give us the receipt. But we know that ads are expensive. Sometimes it's a big dollar amount, and the city does have those funds, so we're okay paying a magazine newspaper directly. Let's see, and then billboards, very high visibility, they can be very effective. Art Walk, again, has done them in Midland for years. They spend about $4,000 each year is their billboard budget, but very geographically limited.
Do you know how long they run for $4,000? Like,
Um,
how far out do they put them and how long they
how
run?
many there are? They're several months, and in fact, they're still there, some of them.
Well, I think that's what happens whenever someone new doesn't buy it, right? They
Yeah.
just keep the other thing up until someone new buys. But it's not doing them any good now. Art Walk's been over since November.
Exactly.
So,
It's a toss up. It's really like if you have a considerable budget that you want to spend, billboards can work. Radio ads, one thing I really recommend is trying to put a contest package together for the radio station to be able to give away. Because if you can bring that to them, that's something they can give to their visitors and keep listeners listening to them. And so it's a benefit to them, and you'll get more coverage for, say, if your event is ticketed, which I know a lot of our local events are free, but let's say it is, then you could negotiate with a local hotel and have a room and a ticket to the event as a package that the radio station can give away, and you're buying some ads on the station, you'll get way more ads for the same money, way more coverage, because they'll talk about your event when they're giving away the tickets.
that'd be great on like a Tejano station for in Midland, Odessa, or El Paso for Little Joe.
So the trick is coming up with what's the package. If the concert's free, now the hotel night goes a long way. So that's something, and depending on the hotel, if you show them that they're getting the coverage, that it's going to be, and you get a night at, this specific hotel that they're getting ad benefit, they may well give you the room for the package complimentary, or at least at a reduced rate. But that's something I suggest looking at. One thing about radio, unless you really know, you're a music event and there's a specific genre of music that you're targeting, it can be difficult to know, like, what does my audience listen to? What's the station? Each station has a pretty hefty price tag on it. So it's can be hard to make the choice. So that's one of the downsides. TV ads, people definitely notice them. When we run an ad, people tell me they saw it. That's pretty striking how frequently that happens. But you do have to have good video. The TV station will often edit for you. And so sometimes if you just have photos, they can piece something together.
They put them to motion now.
Yeah.
You know how you see they zoom in and out of actual still photos, but first year events are always gonna have a harder time
Yeah.
without having any video to go
Those
with stuff.
visual assets, because TV's a visual medium, so you really want to have that. Also, TV's
And they charge
expensive.
more if you ask them to come shoot stuff for you. That's like that adds to your total dollars, but you're not just buying an ad from them. If you're asking them to produce it too from their ad department, then you're like
Yeah.
through the roof on
And so,
cost.
yeah, TV's expensive, but it is pretty effective. You also might have that challenge of what's the right station. Magazine ads, the city does a lot of our general advertising with magazines. One of the benefits is you might have a specialty subject that is a really good fit for what you're doing. That's a win if you do. The big statewide titles, the Texas Monthlies, the Texas Highways, they're very expensive to buy print space in them. There's only so much. Most magazines of any size they have their website. They're a media brand, and so they have a website. They'll have email newsletters, and so you can do a combination campaign with if there's a magazine that's a really, really good fit for you, then you can kind of buy a combo package where you're buying a print ad, a sponsored article on their website with web ads and an email newsletter about your event. And so they'll happily package all that together, and it will cost a lot, but that's something that's out there. One thing to know about magazines, the deadlines are much earlier than you might think, way earlier than radio or newspaper, at least 2 months ahead of time before the month of that issue. You're going to have the artwork to them, at least 2 months. When you're looking at it, just rule of thumb, when you're thinking about a magazine and you're wondering, is this a good price or not? What you look at is the circulation. Ask them how many copies did they print and distribute, and then divide the cost of a full page ad by per 1,000 people. So if it's 30,000 copies, you divide that price by 30. And that gives you a point of comparison for how many people are going to see that full page ad. $30 is quite low. It's a great price if it's a good fit and you got $30 base rate, they call it, go for it. When you get the more regional specialty magazines, you get in the 80, 90 dollar range. Break 100, I start thinking twice about it myself. I tend to say no if it's over $100 per thousand. Here's just a little pro tip. In general, offer people things, they like it. People respond to incentives, so they're more likely to do what you would like them to do. And you can anchor your ads with a special offer. And one thing I highly recommend that we don't nearly enough of, but we're trying to start ramping up, is partner with hotels and see if there's a way to make a package of your event with a hotel night. And you can partner with every hotel in town if you wanted, but that's a thing that somebody can buy all in one. And if you can do it with a discount, all the better. That's a selling point. You put that in the ad and go, oh, look, I can go to this thing and get a discount on my hotel. You know, that's compelling to people. Also, if you work with the hotel where you might not have a website to sell that package, but the hotel has a website to take the reservation. So they might be willing to do it and have a promo code or something like that, where maybe that with the room night, they get the free ticket, or they're coming to that event and they gave you that discount code and they get 10% off their room or whatever it was. One of the nice things about that is, say you run an ad campaign with this discount code, the hotel can tell you how well it worked. You can see how many people actually did it, and you know if a lot did, that was a really good ad. That worked. You know, tracking advertising is the holy grail, and people most seem to think that the internet has that figured out, but it's still pretty squishy in my opinion. It's very difficult to do. So that's something nice if you can. And then lastly, some kind of giveaway at the event, like I said earlier, can be a nice hook to get people to want to give you their mailing address, their email address, so you can invite them back. So one of the last things here, the schedule. This is a dream schedule that we all know that pretty much everything in the world happens at the last minute. If you were starting your to plan your brand new event right now, this is like the ideal world, great way to do it. So 1 year out, you would set your event dates and tell Heather at the visitor center. You would put that magazine pitch together, you know, with that compelling story, because you've been thinking about, from the time your event happened, you've been thinking about next year, we're going to do this different. And you have this great story that you can send to the magazines 12 months out and tell them about it. And you would start on your promotions plan 1 year out, starting to think about, how am I going to spend the money that I have to spend?
Well, because of hot fund deadlines, you're kind of forced to start some of this planning, right?
Yes.
Because we make you start applying because we have to get it into a new budget. And the city's new year starts October 1.
It does.
So we have to get those applications. It goes to the hot fund committee and then it goes to council for approval. So that's a process. So that forces you to make some of these decisions.
Yeah, and for listeners who are interested in applying, with that process is in the summer to apply for these hotel tax grants. So then 6 months out, you would put that advertising plan together where you're deciding, you're looking at, this is the amount of money I have, and here's how we're going to divide those funds up across the channels that we talked about, and make those decisions, what your best bet is. You would have that plan. You would also write 6 months out a detailed description of the event, the elevator pitch, the thing that when Heather puts it on the website, it's those 2-3 sentences that says what a great event this is, that somebody who's never heard about it makes them want to go. And sometimes it's just, this is what's happening. But that description, if I have it, I'll submit it to Texas Highways for their online calendar and their print calendar, and we might get listed. So writing that description 6 months out, you'll also want to be talking to that designer or working yourself, or if you have a talented niece or whatever it happens to be, and getting that artwork together with, at minimum, the name of the event, the dates, the town, because we're in Alpine, Texas. That little artwork, having that ready to go about 6 months out is a good idea. And once you have that, you can make handouts for the visitor center, because Heather can tell people coming 6 months before your event, they might come back just for your event. And so that's something, especially if it's an annual event, as soon as the event happens, get Heather some cards and then tell
So
people,
Cindy
"Oh,
had
here."
something made for the Bluegrass Festival just in time for the Cowboy Poetry. And those fit together because part of Cowboy Poetry is like, there's a whole class on Mike Stevens who makes banjos. And there's lots of music that is with Cowboy Poetry. So it was perfect that I had those sitting on my table at Cowboy Poetry up at Saw Ross, so I could pass out to invite people to come back for Bluegrass because they were already obviously interested in the subject matter.
Yeah, and I'm gonna accelerate through some of this because we've been going for a while. This is all in the handout. Making the Facebook event and starting to contract your magazine ads 6 months out is a good plan. 3 to 4 months out, you're gonna get your social media materials all together. Your photos, your videos, start writing those posts. You're gonna get those press releases together, collect media contacts, which I can help you on some of those. I don't know everybody, but I've met some people. So that you know who you're gonna send your press releases to. If you do billboards, you'll contract them about that time. And this is when you're sending your magazine ads to the magazines. 6 to 8 weeks out, you're contracting for your newspaper ads, your radio ads, your TV ads. You're sending your artwork for the billboards. You're sending your posters out of the area if that's what you're gonna do. You're mailing your direct mail because you have such a huge mailing list already. And you're getting the schedule of here's what's happening during the day of our event as close as possible to the visitor center. And as it develops, keep getting it to Heather because people will ask her, what is that about? What's that? Now, who's coming to that? You know, and so if the more you tell her, she'll shave you a lot of trouble. And then the month before, that's where your social media is all out. You're posting frequently to entice people to come. You're running your social media ad campaign because people are booking kind of later than they used to. So I would say that 4 to 6 week window is kind of the earliest that people are booking unless this is an event that they love and they booked their room when they left last year, because that does happen as well. 1 month out is you're doing your local posters. You're sending your press releases for the daily media, those newspapers, radio, TV, and then you're sending in your artwork for your other ads. So that's kind of your year of promotions. And then the Alpine Visitor Center can help. There's a whole checklist in the handout that talks about all the different things the ways that the Visitor Center can help you and the materials that you can get to Heather to make her help you more. And I'll go real quickly. So let her know where your social media is going to be, and especially that Facebook event. Send her that artwork as early as possible. Even for starters, it's just a photo that's of the theme. That can work. We just need something to get it on the website. Those flyers and handouts, the schedule info, we already talked about that. If you have ticket purchasing, make sure Heather knows how that works so that she can send people to the right place. And if it's online, have a phone number she can give people when somebody is trying to buy their ticket. They want to give you money, but they can't figure it out. Make sure Heather has a phone number so they can call you and you can help them give you that money. And lastly, at the event, if it makes any sense at all, make sure there's a spot for the Visit Alpine tent, because we can then tell people about what else there is in town, invite them back next year, all those kind of things.
Restaurant guides,
There's great
super
at.
popular during those.
So that is the end of my slideshow. So then I'm gonna stop my sharing. Okay, let's go back to Zoom, and I'm gonna show you. I intend to anyway. Come on now. There we go. I'm stopping my screen share, and then I'm going to start a new one with Firefox. And I'm going to show you guys really quick how. Oh no, I had it right here. Here we go. Visit Alpine. Okay, so I'm assuming that the event has a Facebook page, and this is the admin area of the Facebook page. We're gonna go through the steps real quick, and it's also in the handout with screenshots, but we're gonna get this on the video. So on your Facebook page, you go to the events tab right here. I'm gonna click that. And I'm gonna wait for it. Come on now. Is it even trying? Oh, it did it so fast I didn't notice. Okay, so then here we go to create new event. It pops up a window. You get a choice between online, in-person event. You're going to click in-person. And then you got this event details window. We're going to call this big event. And it's today at 7 p.m. and it ends at 10 p.m. Or no, it ends a week from today at 10 p.m. This is a really long event. You have the description area for that great elevator pitch that you already wrote. This is the description. And then a category. Facebook will not let you post the event without a category, so you've got to choose one of the ones that they have and just do your best. We'll say music and audio, and then we go to the next screen, which asks us for the location. You notice right when I click, they give me some suggestions, and we're going to say that this is happening at Coconut Municipal Park, which shows up as an option, which is very convenient, and I'm going to choose it. If there's not one, just type the address, street address, or the closest street address. Say you're in the middle of the street, then pick a building right nearby, and you can just use that street address. Or you can type Murphy Street, Alpine, Texas. That will work, but the mapping will work better if it can take it to a specific place. Yeah, that's probably best. Or, I mean, the street address of, like on Murphy, your lot should have a street address
Yes,
that
it
you can
does.
put in. So that would work. So then we go next. And then lastly, see, this image is the cover image, sorry, of the cover image from my page, but I don't want that. I want the image that we made specially for the event. And so I'm going to click the trash can, which gets rid of that and allows me to upload the cover photo. So I'm going to my desktop. And I have this image I made especially. And this for your designer, and this is also in the handout, a few different places. This is the shape and size that Facebook likes for event pictures. You see, there's this drag to reposition overlay over here. If you have something too big, like it's a square, it's going to cut off the top or the bottom or both, and you can tell it, you can drag it around and show it which part you want it to cut off. But if you make it this shape, you don't have to cut anything off. And so I suggest if you are having somebody make those images, make one of these 1920 by 1005 pixels and make another one that's a square that you can use for Instagram. And that, all right, the last thing that's very important, under event settings, before we publish, I'm going to click this little gear icon, and that's where the co-hosts are. And so we type visit Alpine, comma, oh, come on.
It's not gonna let you make your own, you
Oh, it
co-host
won't
your
let
own
me
event.
co-host my own, because I'm already on Visit Alpine. And so, but you type Visit Alpine, Texas, and it will pop up as an option. And then you can save, and then you can click publish, which I'm not going to do because this is a made up fake event. But that's how you make a Facebook event.
So that's where just posting it on Facebook and creating your Facebook page doesn't create the actual Facebook event. So you have to go through and actually go through these steps to create the Facebook event. And then we can share it to our page. So if he looks under what events are posted on Visit Alpine right now, if you go under events, so those are the only, like, of all the events that are on my event calendar, these are the only ones that have Facebook events created right now that I can share to our page. If you keep going, the Wine and Cheese Festival, so under, like they already have one made, Viva Big Bend has one made, so they are already on there on our Facebook as an event because they've already created their own, and I just share it to our page.
Yeah.
And that puts it automatically onto what else? The app.
Mhm.
Or no,
The
that's
app
the
is off our
website.
website,
Yeah.
not Facebook. But so this shows up when people just go to the Visit Alpine website and start, I mean, a Facebook page and start clicking around. That's a place where they can find you. But also the advantage of making that Facebook event is instead of just sharing the about where it is, that description's there, you've got the date. And it also has a whole discussion area where people can make comments and ask questions and things like that. That's built into the event thing. So we highly recommend doing it. And it also, not, once it's visible here, Heather knows about it, we can share it really easily. And if we're co-hosts, we can buy ads too. And that's something that we like to use our social media budget to boost our partner events. And so depending on what else I have on my plate in terms of ads that I need to buy or campaigns that have been planned, I might put $50, I might put $250, I might put $500, behind different events. And I'll usually check and see, what's the best audience and things like that. Where else are you advertising? So we can maybe get, because the best promotion is when a person sees your event at least a couple of times. They say 11 times or something like that to lead somebody from first learning about something to actually buying it. All that repetition is nice. So if we can target the same people, that's great. So that's why we would do that. Let's see, does anybody have any questions at this point? Now I've barreled through a
We
bunch of
already
stuff.
have a Facebook page on the event.
You have a Facebook page for your event, but you haven't created a Facebook event. So
Okay.
that's what he just walked you through.
Okay.
So I have yours on our website
Uh-huh.
because you have that Facebook page and I took the art and I created the event on the website. Cause like I can do all of that on the backside of our website, but I can't share your event to our Facebook page events because you haven't created your own event yet.
Okay.
So that's that process he just walked through. So that's the difference. It's different than like creating a post. It's actually walking through the steps.
Yeah, you go to your page and then click events and go, just follow
Create.
the step-by-step in the handout
Mhm.
and you'll be there. It's pretty easy. You can do it quite quickly.
As Eva mentioned, the webpage for the activity, multicultural activity is out. Now we're waiting for a website, a page that's gonna be coming up hopefully soon.
Yeah,
And then we'll link them and interesting enough, we sent out mailings to key invitees. And we're getting a response as to, well, this isn't on the webpage, so we had to sort of modify the webpage to include some of the applications and so forth.
You have those on your Facebook. I saw them. Yeah, I got my letter and I saw them. It's easy to do. I'll be out with baby during yours, but the plan is for us to at least send, since we have Lucy now at the visitor center too, we'll send somebody. I just haven't turned my paperwork in yet, sorry. But no, I saw it, what you did. Yeah, it was like right after we got the letter, I saw the Facebook
And
post that
once
showed
the
it
website is up, then we'll revert all the applications and so forth
to the
to the
web.
community page
Yeah.
on the website, on the Facebook page. But my question is, where on the webpage and on the website is the more appropriate place to give credit to the city of Alpine for the hotspots?
right. Well, on a website, I would suggest like the footer of the page, just say, this event is put
Sponsored
on,
by.
is sponsored by or is presented with the assistance of City of Alpine. Yeah,
We're thinking about a sponsors page.
yeah, and that works too.
Okay, that'll be,
Yeah,
and the Facebook page?
the Facebook page, I wouldn't worry that much about it. Just because, and part of that is because all recognition is appreciated, but the recognition that required is if we're actually paying for it. That's where the council is like, if we paid for that ad, then the council wants to make sure the cities, acknowledge as having done so. But like the Museum of the Big Bend, everything they do, they put it on there because, well, it's a significant grant. But even stuff that the city's not paying for, they do. Partly, they don't have to sort them out. It's easier for them just to always have it, but that's when it's really required. Unless, as I said, it's just too small, because if you do one of those magazine display ads, some of those are, tiny little things. There's not room for it. We totally understand.
Have you guys been able to get ownership or become an admin on the Fiesta 1888 page that already exists? There's a Facebook page that already exists for that.
Yes, we're gonna.
Do you know who's in charge, who has it right now, or who has control of it?
Simply,
Oh, okay. So she just has to make you an admin so you
Yes,
can start doing
yes,
stuff? That's good.
Yes, she's gonna work on it.
Yeah, that, I found it out there, but I was like, this hasn't been updated since 2019, so I hadn't put
Yes.
anything yet. Okay,
but it will be.
yeah, I figured, I just didn't know who was the administrator right now, because obviously it doesn't have any names on it, so. That's always, there's a lot of businesses like that too in town. I go and ask them like for their Facebook page and like, we don't know whoever created it. We don't know. So it's hard.
Yeah, and so, hi, Bob. I'm sorry, I just really acknowledged that you were waiting to get in
No.
mentally. I'm not used to hosting these things. I apologize for that. But I'll send everybody the PDF handout and the video, link to the video recording when it's done. So for what it's worth, that was a breakneck speed overview of all the places I can think of that you could promote an event. They're all ones that I or other events at Alpine have used, and they've all worked. It's really just a question of what's the best fit for you. And that is the sort of thing that if you want, we can meet up and talk about it. And I am available to consult on that stuff and make suggestions.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for saying so. Well, I think that's going to be it for us, and I'll stop the recording.